Hi, I'm Alan Hills, and welcome to the College of St. Rose's movie review and discussion podcast, Cutting to the Chase, brought to you by the Campus Radio Club, Radio St. Rose. The summer 2018 superhero blockbuster Ant-Man and the Wasp, also the third and final Marvel Cinematic Universe film of this year, is now available on digital and will be released on Blu-ray. I saw this movie over the summer. Summer 2018 was a great year for movies, but I definitely have my complaints about Ant-Man and the Wasp. There were some things about it that I didn't like. After 3 years since the first Ant-Man, or 2 if you count Paul Rudd's brief appearance as Scott Lang in Captain America Civil War, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a decent sequel that Marvel really took advantage of to some degree. Unlike most MCU sequels, and by sequels I mean twos, the movie has a storyline that focuses on what we've all wanted to see the most following the end of both the first film and Civil War. Ant-Man and the Wasp partially had the feel of a typical Marvel Cinematic Universe 2. You know, kind of like Iron Man 2, which I didn't really care for. Thor the Dark World was terrible. And yet, on the other hand, it had the feel of a good Marvel Cinematic Universe 2. You know, like Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which was phenomenal. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was definitely good, because of its storyline, Peter Quill meeting his father. It satisfied us very quickly in that sense, instead of waiting for the third film to come around, which I think was definitely a likely possibility, but they decided not to wait that long. And I think the same goes for, outside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sometimes twos are just not that good in a film series, and yet sometimes they can be great. There are rare exceptions in film history where they are good, but Ant-Man and the Wasp is weird in that way because it's half good and half questionable. So it really is a disappointment that, the movie couldn't be perfect given all the talented creativity that there is in the movie. While it does have a secondary plot that we could care less about, involving a villain who is trying to steal the Ant-Man formula known as the Pym particle, the movie is strictly about Scott helping Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne and Michael Douglas's Dr. Hank Pym in rescuing Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm that Scott had previously been trapped in. And when it comes to that, I feel like they could have waited until a third Ant-Man movie to continue that aspect of the movie that we've waited to see for so long, but they didn't, and I thought that was really great. They decide for this second movie immediately to undo Janet's sacrifice. They show in the middle of the first Ant-Man movie on how she went subatomic, which she went incredibly small and went inside an atomic bomb to stop it from hitting the United States. You see her and her husband, Hank, were the original Ant-Man and Wasp, and he had to, watch her die, which was terrible. And they used the second movie to finally, continue that anticipation as to if she's still alive or not. And I really appreciate how, they didn't really wait to show us that, because I have no idea what they would have done instead. It would have had the feel of like a bad Marvel 2, like, an Iron Man 2 or Thor the Dark World. And I don't think any of us have the patience, to go through something like that again. I definitely wouldn't have. And even though I just said that there were some questionable things about Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think that they successfully saved the movie in having the characters rescue Janet in this movie. It really did work. It overall had a good plot focus, and it was very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. As like I said, they immediately show Quill finding his father instead of waiting for, a threequel, as they say, and I feel that this immediate plot usage definitely benefited Ant-Man and the Wasp, because otherwise, it wouldn't have worked, and we all would have been bored. And I think the writers and the creative teams involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are getting way better with their decision-making, and I think everything's just going to get better in general, and I definitely hope they do. And so, yeah, the focus on this highly anticipated plot continuation is the ultimate reason as to why this sequel truly works, as well as the amazing performances of Rudd, Lilly, and Douglas. Given the past accomplishments that these actors have made, I'd say they have come a long way, given the fact that Marvel has seen that they are talented enough to be in a Marvel Cinematic Universe superhero movie, out of all movies. In the past, Paul Rudd's funny, he's talented, but, in the past, he's done a lot of slapstick comedies. I think he got famous for his appearance in Friends. Phoebe marries Paul Rudd's character towards the end of Friends, and then he just started to do a lot of those embarrassing slapstick comedies, like Anchorman, which are all funny and they can definitely go over the edge, but he mostly did stuff like that in the past. And, the fact that he's become a superhero now for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it really is quite cool. And you wouldn't expect that he could be so cool when he does it. I wouldn't say it's a surprise, because, look at Chris Pratt. I mean, he started out on Parks and Recreation. He was a total goofball, and now he's this, cool superhero that nobody expected. So in a way, I'm not surprised that, Paul Rudd brings so much triumph to the Ant-Man character. And Ant-Man is such an obscure comic book character, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're not famous like Spider-Man's famous, or the Hulk is famous, or Captain America is famous. Marvel has many superheroes that aren't that popular, and that's what I love about the studios. They're starting to make them popular again. Maybe they were 50, 60 years ago, and they're having these incredibly talented stars play them. They're really making the right decisions. And Paul Rudd is still great in this movie, and I am definitely thankful for that as a film critic and a lover of films in general. And Evangeline Lilly, she's kind of the same. She's good as always. In everything she does, she's kind of the same, yet in a good way. We know her for the ABC series Lost, and she was in the Hobbit trilogy. And in general, she's just a decent actress. It's kind of the same in everything she does, but yet in a good way. And I feel that it's even better in this movie, with their efforts to rescue her mother and Hank's wife, Janet. So yeah, no complaints. I really have no complaints with, Evangeline Lilly, because she led a successful reprisal, and we saw her as the Wasp, which was, a relief to see that she really could do, because I'm sure they casted her in the first film without acknowledging that they might use her as a superhero in the future, and surprisingly it worked out well. Like, I'm sure they hired Sebastian Stan as Bucky without being sure if they would use him again in the future as an assassin known as the Winter Soldier. Marvel really makes the right decision so that they can just do anything they want with the actors in the future. And as a result, we, the fans, the audiences, and the critics, we all love them, and it's really great. Michael Douglas in Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Ant-Man series in general is astounding as well. Because, for the past 30 years, Michael Douglas has been in a lot of, like dark thriller films, where his characters are pretty dark, or either the situations, are pretty dark. If you remember classics like Fatal Attraction, The Game, or A Perfect Murder, he's either a dark character or they're dark plots, and, they're definitely more intense than Marvel Cinematic Universe superhero movies. They're very R-rated material, but in the Ant-Man series, Dr. Hank Pym is, he is a tragic, he is a very smart and cool character, and Michael Douglas's acting as the character is amazing, given all his past accomplishments in those dark movies. You like him, he's funny, he's great, and you really feel bad for him when he talks about losing his wife. And so the fact that he was able to find her again in this movie was even more amazing to watch. And, I love how actors, surprise you in that way, when you know them for other kinds of things and yet they try something new. It's a really fun feel to see what they can do aside from what you're used to seeing them doing, and Michael Douglas is at the top of my list when it comes to that. So it was pretty amazing. And not to mention Michelle Pfeiffer. Oh my God. Pfeiffer's performance as Janet is also an amazing watch that Marvel president Kevin Feige described as legendary. Boy, Michelle Pfeiffer really was a perfect choice because she was at the height of her popularity around the time that Michael Douglas was at the height of his. I don't think they were ever in a movie together, but their hits were out around the same time. So the fact that they brought these two together in the movie was really cool to see. And it really makes you say they should have done a movie together 30 years ago. Maybe they have, and I don't know it because maybe it's this, this small movie that's not even a cult hit because it did so poorly with the critics and the box office. But still, seeing those two legendary actors together, it's one of those rare moments in film where you're just astounded for such a short period of time, and you wish it would last longer because it's such a phenomenal decision that the studios have made, and it's such a phenomenal scene that they've shot. It was pretty incredible. And I remember I read a year or two ago when they were working on the movie, when they were casting it, and even when they were filming it, Michael Douglas originally wanted his wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones, to play the role, which I admit would have been great, but in the movie, I don't think it would have made sense because Catherine Zeta-Jones is close to Evangeline Lilly's age, so therefore I don't think it would have made sense if they had done that. So Michelle Pfeiffer was definitely the right choice. I would love to see Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones in a movie together. I don't know why they haven't done it already, but I don't think they should have done it for Ant-Man and the Wasp. It wouldn't have made sense. But still, they should definitely do a movie together, and Pfeiffer was really excellent. I have no complaints. It was groundbreaking. Another legendary spectacle of this film is, in fact, the creativity with the Pym particle, as I said a few lines earlier, which is once again off the walls. Director Peyton Reed really meant it when he said that it was going to have things in it that you've never seen in a movie before. He said that during the red carpet premiere of Captain America Civil War. I actually watched him say that live before it was reported all over the news the next day. And of course, he was right. Once again, Marvel continues to astound audiences with the Ant-Man and Wasp powers in a variety of captivating ways. I mean, the scenes were crazy. I mean, as Scott and Hope are driving in a car, she shrinks the car so small that you see the giant pigeons plucking at it, as if it were a toy car, which is so amazing. That hasn't been done before. And once again, she makes the car shrink so small under another car that a villain is driving, and then she makes it pop up so the car flies over, and Ant-Man grows so tall that he can push cars around on the road, as if they were toy cars. And that was just such an amazing thing to watch. I think Marvel gets most creative in the trickiest of ways when it comes to the Ant-Man movies. It really is amazing. And of course, there was even a fight scene with Ant-Man and the Wasp where they're in a kitchen and they're trying to fight off henchmen because they're trying to intercept a deal. I can't remember the specifics. And you can see the Wasp, very small, running across a knife that's being thrown. And she even enlarges a salt shaker that one of the villains bumps into. I mean, these are things that, you never see. And I appreciate how Peyton Reed made sure that happened. He delivered something new and he managed to astound audiences, as I said, and I'm really impressed with what he's done. Despite these elements that made the movie worthwhile, parts of it were incredibly hard to buy. Even though Hannah John Kamen's performance as Ava Star/Ghost was incredibly well acted, Lawrence Fishburne's appearance as a generic Marvel friend turned villain was where things, really got boring. Hannah John Kamen really was great. I think she's most famous for Game of Thrones. That's what I read. I don't watch that show. Steven Spielberg actually recommended that she play Ghost for the movie, and she really was good. She's a very talented British actress, and I enjoyed the type of drama she brought to the role, and she managed to not make it generic, and I thought that was, pretty amazing. But Lawrence Fishburne was totally misplaced in this movie. He was this professor who's an old friend of Hank's who turned out to be helping Ghost. And the thing is, I just felt that was so misplaced, and it's so uninteresting. I mean, he's Morpheus from The Matrix. I mean, come on, he can play something way cooler than that. They should have had another actor do it where it wouldn't be as, embarrassing because, Lawrence Fishburne is this iconic star, and I just didn't like what was really going on there. And I knew in the back of my mind that he would be bad because he was acting so nice to the characters, and it's where, you say to yourself as an audience member, this is way too good to be true, So I definitely think that Lawrence Fishburne shouldn't have been in that role. I mean, he definitely deserves something better in the MCU, but hey, we can't always get what we want, right? Plus, the typical Marvel quips especially felt like they were getting kind of old as well. Scott's buddies, the Three Wombats, who I really love, led a pleasant return, but rarely had any uniquely funny moments. The Three Wombats definitely had their funniest moments in the first movie. Their names were Luis, Kurt, and Dave. They were all incredibly funny in that first movie because the jokes were uniquely funny, and Peyton Reed definitely made their moments count. But in this movie, it almost felt like they were just there because even though they were thieves and criminals in the first movie, they try to start their own business and move on. But of course, that becomes impossible once, they're roped into the action with Scott and Hope and Hank, so I can tell they did try to be funny with some of the jokes that they were given, but they felt like unsuccessful repetitions of the first movie, and that was not working. There were a couple jokes that, might have worked, if we were all in the right mood, but still, they weren't as good in this movie, and sadly, I don't think that they should be featured again. You know, it's the same situation with Thor: The Dark World. None of the Earth characters are featured again in Thor: Ragnarok. You know, like Dr. Jane Foster, Dr. Eric Selvig, and Darcy, they're not featured again because, everyone hated Thor: The Dark World and the comedy wasn't working. So if they decide to do an Ant-Man 3, I don't think they should feature the three wombats again because, if they didn't impress us in this movie, maybe they can't impress us again. Maybe it's something that really only works once. They are funny, they are talented, but still sometimes you gotta make some changes to make a movie successful. So it's unfortunate, but I really wouldn't care to see them again because they had their moment, they shined, and I think they might overstay their welcome with a third movie. On the other hand, the reason why I think these moments were so hard to accept was because of Avengers: Infinity War, which was traumatizing for the majority of fans since Thanos managed to kill half of the Avengers once he obtained all of the Infinity Stones. Infinity War was undoubtedly the biggest hit of the summer. It made over $2 billion, and all the superheroes of the MCU came together, and it was an amazing spectacle. But because of all that happened in it, Ant-Man and the Wasp was just, hard to enjoy. And I think, chronologically it is misplaced. So maybe they should have waited a year. I could have waited a fourth year. Time seems to fly by really fast when you have a busy life, and Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place in between Captain America: Civil War and Avengers: Infinity War, and that's why I think it's chronologically misplaced. After Avengers: Infinity War, it is, kind of hard to buy, so maybe they should have just featured the characters in Avengers 4 ahead of time and then just do Ant-Man and the Wasp afterwards, because, Infinity War was so intense. Half of our favorite heroes got killed off, and, all the silly humor's in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we're supposed to enjoy it? It's a difficult situation, it really is. And you're not in the mood for the typical quips anymore, because everything has come full circle thanks to Infinity War. And Marvel made some questionable decisions with Ant-Man and the Wasp, I definitely think. Yeah, and like I said before, my initial reaction in the theater was, what's going on here? I just wasn't buying any of the silliness and the quips. Because Infinity War had such a strong effect. And, the weird thing is, I don't have any concerns for Captain Marvel, because that movie takes place in the early 90s before everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it now happened. And, it's Marvel's first female superhero, so that's going to be a significant theme when it comes out. I think everyone's going to love it for that reason. And it features a de-aged Nick Fury and a de-aged Agent Phil Coulson, so... And the villain from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, Ronan, is returning because Carol Danvers / Captain Marvel is an Air Force pilot who gets her powers after coming into contact from a Kree. The Kree are a bunch of blue aliens that are featured in, Guardians of the Galaxy and in the MCU cosmos, and even in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't seen that show in a while, but they were featured on that show. So I don't think we have to worry with Captain Marvel because people will like that movie. It does look like it's going to be a serious movie, as my friend Ben said in last week's podcast regarding Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom with a touch of Avengers: Infinity War, and I think that is going to be a successful movie. I don't think I'm going to have the same reaction as I did to Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I really am ashamed to say that because I loved the first Ant-Man. I thought it was great in Civil War, and I really expected more when it came to the dramatic intensity of the continuation of the Ant-Man story and Hank's wife Janet being stuck in the quantum realm, and I really did want the movie to be less silly. I wanted it to be a little more serious, and so... However, these imperfections are definitely not strong enough to ruin this long-awaited sequel. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a superbly produced blockbuster, containing cinematic paratexts that are undoubtedly enough to satisfy any MCU fan. So please be sure to brush up on this movie before everything truly culminates in Avengers 4 next summer. I definitely wouldn't take it for granted because even though I had my complaints about Ant-Man and the Wasp, I strongly advise you to put those aside because, everything's going to come to an end in Avengers 4. And, because they only made a second Ant-Man movie, they might still give him a third one because, he's not one of the original MCU heroes that are going to be, bidding farewell in Avengers 4. Heroes like, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and Hulk, they're going to all be saying their goodbyes. But I think, the ones like, hopefully the Guardians of the Galaxy and, the other ones like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and even Ant-Man, they're going to be sticking around for a while. So I would definitely enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp now for what it is because, time really flies and it's all going to end soon. And I honestly have to say, ever since I saw the first Thor in 2011, that was the first MCU movie I saw, I have really enjoyed the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm really sad that it's going to end. You know, they're such awesome movies, and they've proven to me that superhero movies can still be cool, and that movies could still be cool in general, because the acting is great, the dialogue is superb, the direction is visionary, and I think we really have been spoiled with the structure of the MCU, and to see the awesome characters come together, you know, we don't see that enough in movies. No one ever does crossovers, and that's my one big complaint of the film industry and, you know, even TV. Well, actually, they've been doing it more now in TV thanks to Marvel, and I think DC's even done it to some extent, but across all other genres and whatever, you know, we need more crossovers, you know, and that's why the MCU is great. Awesome actors make awesome crossovers. That's just a simple fact of cinematic life, and I really hate to see it go. And so, as time goes by, I will continue to appreciate Ant-Man and the Wasp, since it will be one of the last movies before Avengers 4, and Ant-Man and the Wasp are going to be featured in Avengers 4. So I really don't want to take it for granted, and you definitely shouldn't either. Parts of the movie are great. Overall, it is a successful accomplishment, and I really recommend that you watch it and enjoy it, because it is satisfying. It continues the same plot as the first Ant-Man movie, and it is an MCU triumph to some degree. It really is. You should watch the movie. Buy it, download it, get it. You'll love it. It's great. It's a summer 2018 hit. And trust me, Ant-Man is a great character, and you will enjoy yourself in the end. Thank you for listening, and please be sure to tune in next week, as it will definitely be the most unique podcast of the entire series, as I will be revisiting a classic from 1989, which will be the Civil War film Glory, which I just watched in one of my classes here at the College of St. Rose, in fact, and I will also be hosting an interview with a special guest, and it's going to be incredibly fun, so please be sure to tune in here to Radio St. Rose next week to hear that review. It's going to be an excellent revisitation. We're going to go to the film in great detail after I give a brief 2 to 3 minute review, and it's going to be super fun. One of the best things about being a film critic in modern digital media is to be able to revisit these classics. So once again, please be sure to tune in next week. It's going to be awesome. That's all the time we have. I'm Alan Hills, and this has been Cutting to the Chase. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week.